It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Jenn Cohen as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's Countywide.
Hello and welcome to Countywide. I'm your host, Jenn Cohen. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, today we have with us the Coconino National Forest District Ranger, Nicole Branton. She's here to talk about the Oak Creek Watershed Restoration Project. The preliminary environmental assessment is available for public review. It is time to comment, get in on the action. Nicole, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is actually kind of exciting. It's a huge project, though. Can you tell us what is the Oak Creek Watershed Restoration Project and why should we comment on it?
Yes, this is exciting. So this is kind of a big analysis of a bunch of small projects, a bunch of small actions we think we can take to improve the overall watershed health of Oak Creek. So it's kind of a big jumble of different kinds of projects, from restoring some areas where people have created their own trails or a web of trails going to the creek, where that's putting a lot of sediment into the creek, to developing recreation sites where we're seeing that people are recreating anyway. So instead of a lot of people kind of scattered around a swimming hole, parking by the side of the road or creating their own parking spaces by pushing out the vegetation, building parking areas, putting in toilets, putting in pet waste stations, so that when people are out walking their dogs, that pet waste is ending up in the trash instead of in the creek. It's some improving what we call an aquatic organism passage, which really means that critters that live in the creek can move up and down the creek better without being blocked. It's a big mix of things. All of those small projects all together should improve the overall health of Oak Creek, from increasing the vegetation that's shading the creek, concentrating people in recreating in hardened places that can sustain that without eroding the banks, helping us preserve a really important population of narrow-headed garter snakes, and making a better recreation experience for people in the creek. So it really is exciting because we don't often get to address a bunch of small actions that can have a big impact on a place as important as Oak Creek.
Well, certainly. It's one of our #1 tourist attractions.
Yes.
And environmentally, it's a very unique area. And since there's so many people going to it, it's wonderful to see all these projects. They're all for the betterment of the area. Right. You know, nothing is going to detract from anything. Right. After looking, there's quite a lot of paper. Can you see all these papers? I have about 12 pieces of paper in front of me that are related to the Oak Creek Watershed Restoration Project, the preliminary environmental assessment. Now, what does that mean, preliminary environmental assessment?
Right. So it's a huge responsibility managing the National Forest, because I'm kind of the head housekeeper for a place that belongs to 319 million people. So we talk a lot about the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, and that's kind of government jargon that might make you kind of turn your brain off and stop listening. But it's really about how I, as the decision maker for this piece of land, decide what to do. So what should I do, and what are the impacts of that, both to the natural environment and what we call the human environment. So for all of you who own this land that employ me to take care of it, it's really the opportunity for me to ask you, do you think that these are actions that I should take? And to go through and look at that and go, gee, you know, if I do develop this recreation site at the end of Chavez Ranch Road, which is one of the activities in here, what does that do for the fish in the creek? What is that going to do in terms of the vegetation along the creek? And what is that going to do to the neighbors that live near there? So it's a lot of process, it's a lot of jargon, but it really is as simple as that, is asking the specialists, the scientists who know about these things, okay, should I do this? What happens if I do? And then asking the public, hey, this is your land. Should I do this or not?
Right, yeah, as you drive by it, you live near it, you recreate at it. What's your input? Asking people's for input,
right?
Which is great, because they might have an angle you don't have.
Right, exactly. And this, in fact, happens if this seems like tedious government stuff and why would I bother participating in this? I would say, I've been working for the Forest Service for 20 years. Every time that we do one of these, I learn something new. I learned that, hey, there's rock climbers that use this particular area, and if you got rid of that they would lose that area that they recreate in. Or, hey, did you know that this kind of activity, narrow-headed garter snakes don't move easily to different areas. And they, if they're in an area, it's really important to preserve that. So I learn something new every time, and I learn a lot from the public. So it's so important for people to comment and participate.
I bet. Now, how long does that process take? Because you're looking at multiple projects. I mean, you've got 9 different projects on this proposed activities. Each one of those must take a while just to get to the point where the experts have put in their 2 cents. And then the public's got to put in their 2 cents. And then there's a whole nother process after that of collecting the cents and counting them up.
Right. It takes a while. So we have a team of dedicated specialists. It's this mix of, a hydrologist and a wildlife biologist and an archaeologist and a person who's an expert in scenery, a landscape architect, and a recreation specialist. All of those folks weigh in on these projects and say what they think the effects are, and that's what's contained in this environmental assessment that folks can view online. Then we take it out to the public. Now, this is our second time we've taken it out to the public, this time with all of the analysis in it. So we're in one of those comment periods. The comment period ends September 4th. You have the evening of September 4th after work to settle in and give comments. After that comment period closes, of course, we still want to hear from people. But after that comment period, then we sit down again with that team, look through those comments, and they tell me, we heard a lot about X project, and do you want to consider changing that? Or, boy, we really heard that people are excited about this aspect of it. So we analyze those comments again. If we decide to tweak anything, to drop an aspect of this, to slightly change it, we will do that. Then we'll come out with a final environmental assessment and a proposed decision that says that, this is what I think I'm going to do, and one more chance for the public to weigh in and say, do you think that's the right thing or not?
Another comment period.
Yep. And there's what we call an objection period after the decision, for folks to say, boy, Nicole, you really missed the mark. You just did not consider at all some species that's in there. Let's say the impact to one of the businesses in the canyon, or some aspect of that, something substantial that I missed. If that happens, then we go into what's called an objection resolution process. That means that those folks who object get to meet with the next highest decision maker, the next highest line officer in the Forest Service. In this case, that would be the Forest Supervisor, Laura Jo West, and talk to her. And we sit down at a table just like this and try to figure out, is there a way to resolve that before the final decision? And is that important to resolve or not? So that's why commenting during one of these formal comment periods is so important.
Absolutely. So if you want to check out the EA, it's available on the Coconino National Forest website. It's available on the screen. And for those of you on the radio, it's https://tinygirl.com, Oak Creek, WRAP. I mean, it's huge. But just look up Coconino National Forest website. You'll find it down there. Check out the EA. You want to comment on that. We're talking with Nicole Branton, who is the Coconino National Forest District Ranger. We'll be right back with more Countywide, so don't go away.
It appears these hot ashes are about to be dumped, which could possibly start a wildfire. How will Smokey deal with such a hot situation? The garden hose defense. Next, a thorough stir. Then another spray. And finally, feeling if the ashes are cool. Oh, yeah. Ah, yes, the selfie. A ritual practiced so frequently with this tribe, but not so much by Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
And welcome back to Countywide. We're sitting with the Coconino National Forest District Ranger, Nicole Branton. We're talking about the Oak Creek Watershed Restoration Project. The preliminary environmental assessment is available online. Look, I wrote it down so I could read it. tinyurl.com/Oak Creek Wrap. That's what you want to go to. You're going to submit your comments online until September 4th. But as of 11:59, you're done. So now let's talk about the projects.
Yes.
Oof.
So this is a really exciting project because you know, I was driving through Oak Creek Canyon this morning, and it just is beautiful this time of year, super lush and green, and people out enjoying their public lands, and that's wonderful. So a lot of the why of this project, you might not understand just driving through and looking at it. Because the water looks clear, and there's lots of great places to recreate, lots of animals this time of the morning. But really, we can do a lot better in Oak Creek. So Oak Creek is not attaining state water quality standards for E. coli. So what does that really mean? That's a organism that ends up in the water basically from fecal contamination. That comes from recreationists not using available toilets. It comes from pet waste and animal waste, probably from some leaky septic systems. It's a whole bunch of things. But what that really means is if you're swimming in Oak Creek and the E. coli numbers are up, you're coming in contact with fecal contamination. And that's not what we want you to be experiencing on your national forest. That also has impacts to the animals and fish that live in the creek. 46% of the soils are in unsatisfactory or impaired conditions. We're seeing bank erosion, which of course makes the creek wider and shallower, warmer for those creatures that live in the creek. So we think we can do a lot better, and that's the bad news. But the good news is this is kind of environmental damage that we actually can reverse and also improve the recreation experiences that you're having on your public land. So that's exciting. That's not true of all kinds of environmental damage, but we can do a lot better in Oak Creek. The other good news is we have lots of partners that want to work with us to implement these projects. So should we dive into what the actual projects are?
Yes.
Okay, so there are 10 individual projects in this analysis. So some of them are restoring areas. So we're looking at some places in the canyon. I'm sure folks have noticed if you've driven Oak Creek Canyon on a Saturday, there's more and more and more cars crammed into the sides of the road, people trying to find parking spaces. Now, this project isn't about recreation management per se or traffic management per se. It's about improving watershed condition, but a big piece of that you're seeing when you see that traffic on a Saturday. So over the years, people have created these parking spaces on the side of the road. There's actually no legal roadside parking in Oak Creek Canyon on the National Forest. Now, the businesses within Oak Creek Canyon, of course, you know, they have parking at those places. But so over the years, people have pushed out the vegetation, created parking spaces, and then once they hop out of their cars, of course, they scramble down the banks into the creek. So that creates these trails that carry that soil into the creek, carry that E. coli into the creek, reduce the vegetation on the side of the road. So we're looking at blocking some of those informal roadside parking areas in the canyon. We're looking at rehabilitating, blocking and revegetating areas within the watershed where we have those social trails that come from, hey, I parked my car and I want to make my way to the creek, not following an official trail or a design trail. We're looking at decommissioning roads, for lack of a better word, but places where people have driven vehicles over the years that, again, are not approved, authorized trails. That's illegal driving across the national forest, creating that pathway for water and soil to make its way into the creek. We're looking at unauthorized motorized trails. These are, or roads that have been closed already. So placing boulders, adding vegetation, things like that. That's about half of the projects. And then we're looking at actually developing some recreation sites at places where people are already recreating without good experiences. So at the end of Chavez Ranch Road, we want to develop a recreation site there, put in a toilet, design the parking area so that it can accommodate cars safely, build a solid, sustainable trail to the water. So instead of everybody kind of making their way through the vegetation, you've got one armored, good trail to get to the water. Same thing at Angel Valley 89B, creating a day use site there. Again, toilets, parking, probably trash and picnic areas, so that where people are telling us they want to recreate, they're doing that in a sustainable way. We want to put in more pet way stations. This is a project we've had really good success with across the district. Just when people are out walking their dogs, simply giving them a place to put the animal waste at the end of the day that it's going to be picked up instead of leaving it out on the national forest where it's going to wash into the creek. One of these projects is to replace the existing structure at Spring Creek across Oak Creek and build a new aquatic organism passage. That really just means making a way to allow fish, frogs, reptiles to move up and down the creek without being blocked into a particular area. We want to, at Molina Homestead on Oak Creek, we already have closed former road there. We want to convert that into a trail that goes around the actual homestead. So again, people can get to the creek, they can play in the water, but they're not going through the historical site, so we can preserve that historical site. So it's a real mix of projects.
But it boils down to preserving the ecology in the area, preserving the beauty of the area, and allowing folks to recreate in a safe and sustainable manner.
Exactly.
All of it boils down to that.
Yeah.
That's which is great, and people get excited. Oh my God, what are you going to do? What am I not going to be able to do?
Right.
Well, nothing that isn't supposed to be done, for sure. I mean, you can't have everybody willy-nilly parking all over the place. No, I don't drive into the canyon on the weekends. I don't know about you, but it sounds like that might be possible at some point. Once all the remediation of this stuff gets done, it'll make a pleasant environment for everyone, those recreating or those passing through. So very needed projects.
Exactly, and this is the exciting thing about recreation management, is that what we find is where people are recreating in an unmanaged fashion and you're seeing this kind of environmental degradation from it, if we actually go in, design a good recreation experience, give people good sustainable trails to get to where they want to go, and manage that recreation, you actually grow the pie. You actually create more recreation experiences, better recreation experiences, and you can still sustain these populations in the creek in terms of the fish, the birds, those snakes. We can do better, and we can actually grow the pie.
Awesome. All right, we're going to take another quick break. We're talking with Nicole Branton, Coconino National Forest District Ranger, about the Oak Creek Watershed Restoration Project. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
How I define making? In the broadest possible terms, it is making something extant in the world that didn't exist. Everybody who's ever made anything is bringing something into fruition for a reason, and that act in and of itself makes us stewards of our culture. It's something that we're talking about. It's a response. Actually, it's telling a story. That's really what it is. And I include everything that could be made: painting, sculpture, welding, all of that.
Yellow is positive.
When a kid gets their hands on the world and learns that they can make their fantasy play, that they can make their reality, that's power. And as far as I'm concerned, everyone should feel that kind of power. There we go. If there's something that interests you to bring into the world, that's fantastic. Go figure out how to do it. Go tell your own story. There it is. And so I want to know why you make. Let's go.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
150 over 90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it, or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
And welcome back to Countywide. Just a few seconds left. We're talking with Nicole Branton, Coconino National Forest District Ranger. We've been talking about the Oak Creek Watershed Restoration Project. The preliminary environmental assessment comment form is there for you. You must comment by September 4th. Let's talk about comments.
Yes. So again, really complicated project, so important to hear from people. So it's important when you comment on one of these projects that you know it's not a voting process. It's not like if 100 people comment and say do activity 2, we're going to do activity 2. And if 30 people say do activity 6, we might not get to that. We're going to implement these projects really with partners. This is about us planning it up front and then working with those partners, the National Forest Foundation, the Oak Creek Watershed Council, the City of Sedona, Red Rock Trail Fund, ADEQ, all those folks to actually implement these. So you're not going to see this be carried out for a little while. But what we really want to know is which of these are most important to do. What did we miss in the analysis? So don't send us a comment that just says, I like project number 2. I mean, that'll be nice to hear. I'm glad I'm serving you. You know, that's nice to hear, but it doesn't help us do better in this analysis. A good substantive comment is something like, when you did this analysis, you didn't take into account these areas that people like to climb, or you didn't consider this kind of endangered species. So we want to hear really substantive comments by that comment cutoff time at, as you said, 11:59 p.m. on September 4th to have standing. Really tell us what we missed is helpful.
And email is the best way to deal with comments. Of course, you can fax them, you can mail them, but email is instantaneous and the best way to do it. And the email is also long. Look at that. Comments-southwestern-coconino-redrock@fs.fed.us. There you go.
Thank you for reading that whole thing for us.
Gosh, who makes those up? But so you want to get your comments in there, of course. Make sure they're relevant. And kind is always nice, and educated. Read what's happening. All the information is on the website regarding all the different projects. If you have a comment, if you're a resident, if you're a neighbor of the project, if you're someone that recreates there, give your input.
Yes.
You know, that's what this is about. But you only have until the 4th, and if you don't step up and say something by then, you're out of luck there.
Yeah, the last thing I want to do is find out, once we're already implementing things, that this impacted something that's really important to you as a neighbor or as a recreationist. We don't want to find out too late. So, and there's a lot there on the website, as you said, all of the maps of the parking areas we're looking at, these different projects, different little social trails we're looking at, rehabbing. So dig into that and give us some good comments.
Thank you so much for what you're doing, Nicole.
Oh, thank you.
I know this is exciting, but I also know how hard this probably is for you, and being in the public, out with this and dealing with all the stuff that comes along. So thank you for the job you're doing. Make sure you go to the Coconino National Forest website or check out tinyurl.com/Oak Creek WRAP. Email your comments, get them in September 4th. That's all the time we have for Countywide. I'm Jenn Cohen. See you next time.